Now, so I don't forget. Welcome, Carla.
Hi there.
How you doing?
Good. How are you guys?
Good. Good. Trying to
Great.
stay cool.
Same.
Welcome, Victoria. Welcome, Ricardo. Thanks for joining us. Get started in just a couple of minutes. It looks like we are right at 2 o'clock right now, so we can keep an eye on the waiting room to make sure that we let everybody in, our guests. So it is 2 o'clock, so I'm going to go ahead and get started. I wanted to welcome you all to our webinar today. Thank you so much for joining us. I hope that you're all staying cool. I know it's a hot one out there. So just want to welcome you once again. And my name is Colette Ferron Goodwin, and I am the Director of Regions for New York State TESOL. I'm also a resource specialist with the Mid-State Regional Bilingual Education Resource Network in Syracuse. And on the screen there, you'll see the Syracuse-Binghamton Region Leadership Team, and two of which are presenting today. So just really quick, some information on New York State TESOL and the organization and what it's about. If you are not currently members, we actually are offering registration for only $25 for new members. So please consider joining if you are not a member yet. Also, we have our conference, the 2022 conference coming up from November 3rd to the 5th at the Sonesta in White Plains. So would love to be able to meet a lot of you in person, especially, with the last couple of years, we've all been remote and looking at each other through screens. So it's really nice to see people in person and associate names with faces and do that in person. So hope you can join us. So I want to just introduce our presenters for the day. We have these Benavides and Brittany Wylie from the North Syracuse School District. They are also members of the Mid-State Auburn ENL Council and are also, as you saw, New York State TESOL regional co-leaders as well. So they're presenting today. This is the second in a series of 3. So they're presenting today on brief number 3, the collaborative instructional, I'm sorry. Yes, the collaborative instructional cycle. And also they have the third one coming up, which is topic brief number 4, 7 models of co-teaching. And that one is on the 19th of September. Okay, so and that one's from 3:30 to 4:30. So hopefully you'll be able to join us for that one as well. Okay. And without further ado, I would like to introduce Lise and Brittany. Go ahead and take it away.
Very good. Well, my name is Lise Benavides, and thank you so much for joining us today. Some of you might have already joined us for our first presentation, and that was on what is co-teaching and what is not. So today we're going to be moving into topic number 3 technically, but number 2 for us, which is the collaborative cycle. So my name again is Lise Benavides, and my partner in crime is Brittany Wylie. She's going to be in charge of the chat today and of letting people in as they come into our presentation. So any questions, feel free to throw them in there and she will be taking care of that. So at this time, I'm just gonna need a minute to get the presentation going and we'll get started. Okay, so we wanted to start with this quote, and can everybody see me? Everything working so far so good? Yes, no?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you. So we wanted to start with this quote because we kind of like the essence of it. It says, "ELs desperately need educators who believe in them, who recognize their assets, and who have the support and the training they need to do their best by all their students." So this is what the New York State says the topic briefs are. And we kind of highlighted the sentence in the middle because we want to make sure that we are all in understanding of what the purpose of these topic briefs is. I think that for the sake of time, I'm going to read it to you if that's okay, unless I get a volunteer. Okay, I'm just going to go for it. So to support districts in providing better services to... I'm sorry? To support districts in providing better services for ELs, the following topic brief identified the basis for the practice of co-teaching for this population, as well as the specifics for implementation of the program. School and district administrators, coaches, teacher leaders, and all teachers working with ELs will benefit from the recommendations outlined in these documents. These documents support teachers to become effective co-teaching partners, as well as to give school leaders a better understanding of the practice and the different models that can be implemented to support the success of their students. So again, the purpose of our topic brief debriefing is not to give you the key of getting co-teaching going in your necessarily in your classroom, but the keys and the resource that you need to go to your administration and be a better advocate for yourself and for your students. And again, this is not just some random blog that we found. This is New York State, comes straight from their resources. And just a quick reminder that as I am presenting, I cannot see the chat or the raised hands. So Brittany, just make sure that if anybody has questions, maybe unmute yourself because I cannot really see anything, okay? So I'm gonna go ahead and share our presentation in the chat. And you should be able to open our Padlet, the note catcher, and the action plan. Okay, so I think that we just got a newcomer. There is the presentation link on the chat. Please click on it and open the presentation.
Lisa, it looks like our participants may need access.
Thank you, Colette. Oopsie, anyone with the link? Okay, let's try this again.
And then click done.
Did I not click done?
That same link should work now for everybody.
Okay. Okay, let's try that. So the first thing I want you to open once you have access to our presentation is the Padlet. Oh, I see everybody's able to join. Fantastic. And if you joined us the previous presentation, then you're already familiar with this. Today, you're going to be using topic brief number 3. And this is just a quick, what do you already know about it? And what would you like to learn about this specific topic brief? If you're not familiar with Padlet, all you have to do to share is click the plus sign. And then you should be able to write your message right in here. And to access Padlet, all we do is we click on Padlet and open the link right here. Is everybody able to open the Padlet? Because I don't know if I see anybody here yet.
You can also copy and paste the link of the Padlet.
The link is in the chat too. And if it's not working, we can just maybe discuss it orally. That way we don't have to be wasting time with technology. I know the last time technology was not my friend, so I don't want to repeat of it this time. So again, what do you already know about it? And what would you like to learn more about this topic brief? So if the Padlet is not working for you, maybe you can drop it on the chat and then we can share it with everybody. Your choice. Oh, thank you. We got somebody. It says, I focus a lot on the co-planning portion of the brief. I want to hear everyone's strategy for co-planning. That is really good. Very good, thank you.
And if somebody writes something that you agree with, you can always like it or add a comment to it saying that you agree with them.
I'm gonna add a heart right there. Thank you. Brittany, has anybody shared on the chat?
Not seeing anything yet.
Okay. Well, maybe for the sake of time, I see that 4 people gave it a heart, so clearly we are in here. Oh, I see another one. Perfect. Seeking better ways to advocate for ELs when speaking to administrators. Seems there is a disconnect with previous times. I'm not sure what this last sentence means. But yeah, definitely I love the beginning here, better ways to advocate for our ELs and speaking to our administrators. That's definitely our goal. Divide pages or activity with my co-teacher a day before class. Okay, very good. Okay. So again, if you were joining us on our previous session, then you know the note catcher is this document right here. It's going to ask you to make a copy of it. That way it's yours to keep, it's not anybody else's. And you can use it by writing or typing the topics that we're talking about and writing yourself some notes for later. And there is a couple of more activities in here, but basically just use it as best as you understand that this is your tool to keep and to use as needed through the year. And then the last part of, it's just note catcher action plan, sorry. Okay, so here are our goals or content objectives. And number 1 is going to discuss the topic briefs and the benefits of using it as a tool to discuss co-planning with administrators and teachers of EL. We're gonna digest the brief into talking points so that you can use with administrators or teachers of ELs. And then we're gonna hopefully have some time at the end to create an action plan for using the topic briefs moving forward. Last time we didn't have enough time left over for the action plan, but we were able to at least give you an idea of how you could use it on your own time and how you could plan to be more strategically precise with it. We also included some language objectives because, as you know, as teachers, we need those for our ELs. So, why do I keep doing that? So for the language objectives, we have, I can explain the collaborative instructional cycle to my co-teachers and my administrative team, and identify one area of the collaborative instructional cycle that I can make improvements to. Okay. So the first part of the brief is the collaborative cycle, the collaborative instructional cycle. So co-teaching in an integrated ENL classroom requires much more than having just the 2 teachers, and one of them being the ENL teacher. Delivering the instructions together to the classes that usually contain multilingual learners or ELs. It also requires lesson planning, determining ways to support a student's social emotional well-being, joint assessment of the work of the students, and individual and teacher team reflection on both collaborative and instructional practices. The collaborative instructional cycle, which consists of 4 interrelated phases, and these phases are co-planning, co-instruction, co-assessment of a student's learning, and lastly, the reflection. All 4 phases together maximize the teacher effectiveness and the impact of the ELs or multilingual learners, language acquisition, literacy development, and content learning, as well as their emotional growth. So we have a quick activity here for you, but this is the instructional cycle or the collaborative instructional cycle. As we said, we have co-planning, co-instruction, co-assessment of your students, and lastly, the reflection. So here is our question. What are you missing or wish to improve in preparation for co-teaching? If you click right up here, it's gonna take you to a Jamboard, and then you can share what you're already doing or you wish you could improve on. And the link is also on the chat for your convenience. Is the link working for everybody? Oh, I see some people. Perfect. Thank you so much. I wish we could ensure the co-planning time. Yes, absolutely. I think that that's one of the biggest challenges that we have currently in our district in the middle school and secondary level overall. Co-reflection seems to be overlooked because there isn't enough time. I agree with that too. Maybe one more or a couple of more. Using data to plan. Very good. And I'm guessing that is something that is missing. Okay, wish to improve. Okay. Thank you so much, those of you that shared. I feel like we are all in similar circumstances in our district. Definitely, we need more co-planning time. We need to be better at that reflection. We need to use our data a little bit more appropriately. If there isn't a good relationship between colleagues and different styles, it is difficult. It is a difficult year. That is so true. Absolutely. For co-teaching to work, you have to have that rapport with your co-teacher. Very good. Well, thank you so much, those of you that shared. We really appreciate it. So the next time is about protecting your time. While co-instructions might receive more attention, teachers need protected time and structured opportunities to implement the collaborative instructional cycle. As they collaborate to create multi-level differentiated units and lesson plans, engage in collecting and analyzing formative and summative student data, and reflect on the teaching learning process that took place in the class, as well as the collaborative relationship of the team. In the chat, maybe you can share, do you have protective collaboration time? I'm thinking that based on one of our answers that we already got, collaboration time is very scarce, but do you have it? And if so, can you please share with us? And do you find that you and or your co-teachers spend more time in one phase of the collaborative instructional cycle than the other phases? And I think, again, this topic has come up already because somebody already shared that maybe the reflection gets a little bit overlooked. Brittany, since you're in the chat, would you mind sharing some of the answers once they post them, please?
So Sophia shared that at her previous job, she did have common planning time, but she does not co-teach now. And Julia said, due to COVID, it's difficult to co-teach. Yeah, it's harder to find that common planning time because some teachers are teaching online and teaching in their classrooms.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing. As I already mentioned, in the district that we teach on, that collaboration time it can be challenging because the way that our schedule work, we have a lot of L's in our district, our population keeps growing. So I feel like administrators sometimes overlook scheduling enough collaboration time on the schedule because of lack of resources at times. Very good. Again, thank you so much for those that shared with us. The second part is collaborative planning or co-planning. So for this, we said that careful preparation of co-teaching must include critical conversations around the following dimensions or share instructional practices. So first, we need to lay the foundation for sustained collaboration by establishing those strong partnerships. So again, when you have issues with your co-teacher, that could be challenging. So having that strong partnership is such key. Number two, regularly examining student data obtained from multiple sources to reflect on students' academic, linguistic, and social emotional development, and to make short-term and long-term instructional decisions. Those sources could include teacher-created formal and informal assessment, student observation, portfolios, as well as the NYSED TEL or the NYSED SLAT, and other standardized tests. Also, we should be planning instructions by integrating both content and language goals and examining the general education and ESOL teacher expertise, and expanding impact on students' learning through the ongoing sustained effort of collaboration. Okay, and next you need to plan to plan. This is such an easy thing, and sometimes this is the one that gives us the most difficulties, right? So co-planning is most frequently focused on units of study or lesson, and it involves the cooperation of two or more educators. Co-teachers must provide ample time for collaborative planning for any effective co-taught instructions to take place in the integrated ENL classroom. Common planning time creates a professional context in which teachers can regularly collaborate, because without co-planning, there is no co-teaching. Okay, so here's another type in the chat. And again, Brittany is gonna keep an eye on the chat for us. What data are you currently taking into consideration when planning your lessons? And are you incorporating language goals in your lessons? If yes, what does that look like in your planning? If not, what is your roadblock? So again, please share your answers in the chat, and Brittany will read it for us.
So I added to the chat and I said, NYSED SLAT and NYSED TEL, of course, give us a good baseline for where we're starting in the classroom.
How about language goals? Is anybody incorporating language goals currently into their lessons? In the co-teaching lesson model, I mean.
Someone shared that they use language and content objectives. Robin says she uses STAR. And Carla thinks that it's important to include the NYSED slot, but also using the sub data is important. Very much agreed. And something called Best Plus 2.0. I'm assuming that's some kind of literacy screener. In North Syracuse, we use Ames Web.
Very good. Thank you so much, Brittany. And thank you again for those that shared.
Before we move on, though, I would love if anybody wants to share, if you can go back one slide, Lise.
Yes.
So what do we think that is our roadblock? What is stopping us from incorporating language goals if we're trying to? I mean, I know that on our own as E&L teachers, we often will plan the language goals, but sometimes there can be a little bit of roadblock making sure that the teacher is carrying those out. If people want to unmute, they can as well.
I think it's sometimes difficult to put the content and the language goal in one sentence to create the by statement. Students will use superlative adjectives by and what that content objective is, and that has to relate to the content, and that's difficult a lot of times to always find the words, the wording, I'll say.
Thank you. I agree with that. And also in the chat, Chloe said that different interpretations of what achieving the goal looks like. So I think very similar to what you just said, the by doing what. So what are they, showing you that they've achieved, and does that, successfully fulfill that goal? And we also have shared time. Time is always what's so precious. Time to talk about the language objectives, explain them, and explain why they're so important for our ELs. Definitely agree with that. Thank you.
So I guess that part of time also goes with understanding, because a lot of the times our co-teachers don't really understand what is the purpose of the language objective or why do we even include them in the lesson. So that could get a little bit of the pushback, especially when time in the class is already so limited as is. Okay.
And we also have conversations with all staff involved. So I think using, the end goal of all of this is we're presenting this topic brief to you so that you are able to digest it, and we're hoping you'll use it in an action plan to present to your administrators. The fact that it is put out by NYSED gives it a lot of credibility.
Very good. Thank you. Are we ready, or are there any more answers in the chat, Brittany?
Looks good.
Okay, very good. So the next part is the co-planning basics. And for this one, for effective teacher collaborations, teachers must be always prepared to share. So what do we share? We share our expertise of content, knowledge of literacy and language development, as well as our pedagogical skills. We share instructional resources and technology tools, including those that support virtual and remote instructions. Supplementary materials that are scaffolded and differentiated, instructional strategies that represent research-informed and evidence-based practices, as well as approaches to co-teaching and ways to group students and optimize classroom space for instructional delivery. This next slide is a lot of resources that NYSED is giving us. So some of those include the next generation ELA learning standards, bilingual common core progressions, which we're all hopefully very familiar with. We also have the New York State Next Generation for Math. We have the New York State Social Studies Framework, as well as the Science Learning Standards. And other resources that are useful for successful co-planning would be curriculum map, scopes and sequence charts, content area text and teacher guides, knowledge and use of technology for co-planning and lesson delivery, and co-planning framework for action plans to establish a co-planning task and to accomplish, co-planning tasks. Okay, so what are we looking for when we are co-planning? So effective co-teaching requires teachers to regularly engage in collaborative planning, at least minimum of 1 period per week to collaborate with your co-teachers, to engage in professional dialogue about both the varied needs of your students, as well as the academic complexities and linguistic demands of the learning standards. You should also be able to establish integrated learning goals and instructional procedures for reaching those objectives. You should have target the academic language and literacy development of all learners with a special attention to ELS. You need to agree on formative assessment tools to be used to inform your instructions, integrate individual education plans or IEP, goals into the lesson plan as needed, and determine the appropriate modification and adaptations that will offer the necessary support to the students that need them. Instructional delivery through co-teaching. Now, for this one, we're gonna skip over just because this is gonna be our last topic brief, and the brief number 4 focuses on all 7 models of the co-teaching model. So if you want to learn more about it, you can join us on September 19 at 3:30 over Zoom, or you can just do some independent learning by clicking on the link, and that's going to take you to topic brief number 4. So the next part is the assessment. Collaborating teachers, need meaningful, accurate, and actionable information about their ELS, language development, and content attainment, so they can plan more effective lessons, differentiate instruction more purposely, and integrate content learning with language development opportunities across the 4 domains of listening, speaking, reading, and writing. And while engaging in collaborative assessment, teachers often need to do the following. We need to identify and analyze the student's strengths and areas of need, design the most appropriate instructional strategies that will enhance the student's strength, generate possible explanations for students' performance level from multiple points of view, discuss the research-based best practices and promising strategies that they wish to implement, and plan coordinated interventions. Do we have a question after this one? No. So I want to take a quick minute to ask you to reflect on your own practice right now. And is there any of these ones that you feel you're currently using very well, or do you feel like you need to improve on? And if you don't mind sharing, maybe you can type that in the chat. So when it comes to assessment, which one of these ones you already do with your co-teacher that you feel you're doing very well? And which one do you think you might need some improvement on? And Brittany, if you can keep an eye on that and share with us, that would be greatly appreciated. Thank you. For example, in my own practice, I feel like coordinated interventions is one of my weaknesses, and it's mostly because, again, we lack the common planning time. So even though we both, me and my co-teachers, we know what the students are struggling with, sometimes it's very hard to coordinate the efforts to get those interventions going more effectively. I think that if we were both doing it together at the same time and I don't know, maybe getting better at that collaborative part of it, I feel like it would be so much better for the students and their learning goals. But unfortunately, we just don't have that common planning time, and therefore the interventions could be a little bit better. So is there anything like that happening in your own practices?
Someone said that identifying is easier than designing to be most effective to see improvement.
What was that, Brittany? I'm sorry.
So in the chat, we have identifying is easier than designing to be most effective to see improvement. And Greg said that I think with anything, it's a lack of common planning time. Students' crazy schedule coupled with our own limited time make it near impossible to carve it out on a weekly basis.
Yeah, absolutely. Completely agree with that. Very good. So collaborative assessment is highly structured and cyclical. Each time new data is collected, student progress and performance are reassessed. And therefore, the teachers have the opportunity to reflect on the students' academic learning, as well as their socio-emotional and their linguistic development. And the last part of this cycle is going to be the reflection, which, as somebody already mentioned, sometimes can be the forgotten child because of lack of time. Okay, so reflection. Collaborative instructional cycle would not be complete without sustained opportunity for teachers or co-teachers to reflect on the challenges and the successes that they have with the integrated ENL program model. And when reflecting, we should be focusing on parity. And that means, do both teachers participate equally in the lesson? If not, how can they? Does it work? Does it not work? Integration of language skills. Do both teachers provide instructions and support for content and language development? Again, I feel like this one could be a challenge at times because of that language goal. Opportunities to talk. Does the smaller student-teacher ratio lead to higher level of student-to-student interaction and more student talk for academic purposes? Engagement. Do both teachers provide students with meaningful, challenging learning activities that make engagement visible? And lastly, formative assessment use. Do the co-teachers collect and respond to formative assessment data to offer immediate interventions as needed, and as a result, maximize the benefits of co-teaching?
So my vision for that reflection slide is that you could take this to your administrator and use these questions to help propel your conversation about your current program, your current practices, and how to make them better. So you can take this to your administrator. If you already have a good relationship with your co-teacher, you could take it to them and use it as a reflection piece to better your practice.
Thank you, Brittany. So the last, I believe this might be the last slide. Yeah. These are the 4 critical steps for reflective questions, and they want us to focus on 1, what happened, 2, why, 3, so what, and 4, now what. So under each of these squares, you have some guiding questions. So for example, on the what happened would be description of your lesson. What did I do? What did others do? What was the effect? What's going on around us? And so on. The why is the analysis or interpretation of the lesson. Why do you think this happened this way? How might the context have influenced the experience? And so on. Number 3 is the so what, which is the overall meaning and the application of your reflection. So why did this seem like a significant event to reflect on? What have I learned from this? How can I improve? What questions remain? And so on. And number 4 is the now what? So next steps or implications for action, as they call it. And some of those questions might be, who should be actively included in reflecting on this event? The next time a situation like this presents itself, how do I want to behave? Or how can I set up conditions to increase the likelihood of productive interactions and learning? I personally really like this chart because of the guiding questions, because it really helps you analyze the whole process of your lesson, like the what happened, why did it happen, so how can I get this and make it better, and what are my next action steps? Okay. So we're just gonna do a quick review of our content objectives. In this topic brief, we discussed the topic brief and the benefits of using it as a tool to discuss co-planning with administrators and teachers of L. We digested the brief into talking points so that you can use it with administrators and teachers of L. And we are going to thankfully have a few minutes to go over an action plan for yourself to use the topic brief as you move forward. So if you have been using your Google document that we share with you at all, you should have been taking some notes. And here, the next part is your action plan, which is action plan to obtain common planning time. So you can put some date. So today, maybe, what are some first steps that you can do and who should be involved? So for example, if the goal is to advocate for co-planning time, then maybe your steps would be to get a meeting with my administrator or with my co-teacher, and who's gonna be involved? Obviously the administrator and the co-teacher, right? And lastly, reflecting on your learning. And that's the I can statement that we had come up with, which is, I can explain the collaborative instructional cycle to my co-teacher and my administrative team. If you think that you can, then give yourself a check mark. And if you think that you could use more help on that, maybe give yourself a note instead. And the last I can statement was, I can identify one area of the collaborative instructional cycle that I can make improvements to. So if you can identify your one area, then maybe you can give yourself your check mark. And if not, maybe give yourself a note. As of this time, we have 2:45 on the clock. So maybe you would like to take, what do you think, Brittany, like 10 minutes to work on the action plan and next steps?
I think that sounds good. And if anybody has any discussion points they want to talk about now, feel free to take turns on muting and we can talk about them to help you create your action plan. And I was also thinking that when you're creating your steps, you should also include the materials that you'll need to bring with you, such as the topic brief.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, so please do not log off. Instead, just take the next 10 minutes to come up with some steps for yourself as you move forward in this planning time, okay? And before you go, we are gonna be asking you for some feedback on today's session. So again, do not just log out, stick with us. And as Brittany said, if you want to share some of your reflection, or if you just wanna discuss some of the topics, unmute yourself and we can have a chat. I'm gonna do a 10-minute timer. Is that okay, Brittany?
If you feel like you are finishing up your action plan and want to share that with us, you can type done in the chat. That way we can see and gauge if we really need 8 more minutes.
Okay, so we have 2 more minutes before 2:55, which would be the 10 minutes. So if you are done or almost done and you would like to share, go ahead and unmute yourself and go for it if you're comfortable sharing. If you just want to keep working, then you can do that as well.
I'll share out. One of the things that, especially in this beginning of the school year, this year, is definitely the communication between my co-teachers. Definitely want to make improvements on that. How to do that? Again, planning ahead of time to meet with that with my co-teachers, whether it be in their classroom, my classroom, and just really setting the precedent of how are we going to communicate with one another. And how often each week. So luckily, I'm very fortunate in the beginning of the school year that I have a blank slate in my schedule. So making sure that I'm fitting in, hopefully collaborating between lunch periods or even prep time periods, at least once with one or two of the classroom teachers, because I'm teaching grades 3 and 5 this year. So with that, being prepared, bringing the curriculum map, bringing our manuals, as well as the teacher's previous worksheets or slides that she's used in the past or he used in the past, just so that way I can have really a gambit as to how I can make accommodations for my Ls, as well as any other student that may find the content challenging. From there, really just stressing the point, because I know one of the weaknesses I've made was getting into the rut of co-teaching models, that sticking into one or two of them throughout the year, and really just making sure that I'm more aggressive on pivoting and changing the model to fit the needs for students. But the big point that, as you've shown in the slides, is that reflective piece, definitely using that throughout the conclusions of the lessons, to really make sure that both parties, myself and my co-teachers, were really making sure that we're on top of things, to say the least.
Thank you so much for sharing. Those are some really good ideas. Yeah, I myself, I feel like I'm on the same page with you. I need to make sure that we carve out some time in the beginning of the year to sit with my co-teachers and really look at the scope and sequence of the year, and just start co-planning from the beginning and start creating that relationship from the beginning, because it is so easy to just, get into the routine and then not work on those reflections, or really start carving out the time to meet with them in advance. So thank you so much for sharing. Yes, Brittany, protected planning time. Good job. Okay, thank you, Robin. Robin says my internet is not stable, and I wrote mine out. Thank you so much. Okay. Would anybody else like to share before we go to our very, very last slide? Okay. So the last thing we're going to ask you to do for us is to give us your feedback, which it is as important, if not more, than anything else that we have done today, because we have one more of these to go. And we really want to hear from you about what we did well during the session and what can we improve on for the next session. So please do not skip the feedback form, just because it really helps us plan for the next steps and reflect on what we just did, as we have been talking about. So I just put the Google form on the chat for your convenience, but it is also on the slide. So if you have the slide open, you should see it there as well. Any questions before we let you go?
So,
okay. Well, in that case, without further ado, again, thank you so much for joining us today. I hope that you find this session informative, and we hope to see you on our last session. So again, give us your feedback. We really, really appreciate it. And as always, thank you for coming. It was a pleasure.
And I just want to say thank you to Lise and Brittany for presenting, and for everyone joining us today, and hope to see you at the next session. And enjoy the rest of your day. It just started pouring here, so hopefully you're dry, you're warm and dry, you're cool and dry, I should say. So enjoy the rest of your day, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you.